Thanks for taking the time. Good to see everybody here again. Javier Becerra, Chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, joined by our Vice Chairman, Joe Crowley, and just concluded a good meeting today with our members. Everyone's enthusiastic, excited to be back because we got a lot to do. We know we have a lot to do, and so we're hoping that we have a chance to get some things done rather than just spectate. We know that the president's been busy. The president continues to move forward where he can. We have this week a vote on the agreement that was negotiated by the president's team along with the 5 other countries that joined us to negotiate with Iran, an agreement to try to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. We have the president moving forward, making sure that working Americans are afforded sick leave and paid time off for family leave. We know the president previously moved to try to encourage, not just encourage, to require that federal contractors pay a higher minimum wage to workers throughout the country who work for federal contractors. So the president's been doing a number of things, and we thank him for that because he's made America a better place. The difficulty is I know the vice chairman and I would love to be able to say that we're joining with the president through congressional action to get things moving forward, to get things done. Unfortunately, it looks like Congress is spectating while the president and others, including American families, get things done. And so we're hoping that we have a chance in September when so much has to be accomplished. We have to finish the budget process to fund the operations of our government, which people depend on, whether it's the Pentagon and paying our military men and women, or whether it's making sure that we have the food safety inspectors out there, the National Institute of Health researchers trying to find those breakthrough medicines. All those activities require our taxpayer dollars to keep them moving forward. And if we see another government shutdown, as we saw just a couple of years ago when Republicans decided to shut down the government in order to try to kill the Affordable Care Act, trouble, real trouble. The economy is still moving forward. Unemployment is now at its lowest level in over 7 years. We saw near 200,000 jobs created last month, and we've seen over 12 million jobs created in the last 5.5 years. Progress, but when Congress spectates, a lot of things get held up, including funding to make sure our roads and bridges are not only repaired but improved. On all the infrastructure, the things that make it possible for us to get to work, to raise our families, all those things that we take for granted, the infrastructure of our country is at risk because we haven't yet at the congressional level seen Republicans move forward to let us vote on funding our roads and bridges and all that infrastructure that goes on. And so it's time. It's time for us to get things done. And here today, this morning, I would like to announce that one of the ways I'd like to see some things in this Congress get done is I have made a decision after careful examination to support the president and support the negotiated agreement with Iran to prevent it from possessing and producing nuclear weapons. And I am prepared to vote against any measure here in the House of Representatives that would try to thwart that agreement from taking full effect and being implemented. I make this decision and take this action after having gone through weeks of examination, reading a number of documents, talking to a number of experts, talking to numerous constituents and stakeholders in this. And my sense is that if we can make measurable progress in making sure that we prevent nuclear proliferation, in this case with regard specifically to Iran, then we should be supportive. And I believe that this agreement makes measurable progress in preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. So I will be supportive of the agreement and oppose any effort to try to thwart its implementation. With that, let me yield now to the Vice Chairman of the Democratic Caucus, Joe Crowley from New York.
Thank you, Chairman Becerra. It is good to be back, and I think my colleagues, certainly in the Democratic Caucus, are happy to be back after a long break where they had tremendous success in their districts, working back in their districts on behalf of their constituents and I think bringing the message back home that we need to get things done here in Washington. Typically, September, when we return, it's supposed to feel like a new year, a new beginning. And instead, September now has taken on the same old of whether or not the Republicans are going to shut down the government again. They did it 2 years ago, as the chairman said. They narrowly missed doing it a year ago. But once again, they're back to the same old adage of what issue can we use to bring down the government? I don't think that's what the American people are looking for. That's not the vision that the American people are looking for from Congress. It's not the vision they expect from their member of Congress. What they expect is that we work together to come up with a budget for America that works for America. They expect that we will come up with a CR that will keep government open until we can figure out these budgetary issues that works for America. They expect that we have a vision for America that includes our infrastructure, putting people back to work, securing America through its infrastructure as well, our ports, our airports, our tunnels, our roads, our bridges, thinking big, not thinking small. America is about thinking big and not thinking small. But unfortunately, Republicans have been narrow-minded as it comes to the issue of infrastructure and the investment in this country. The American people are looking for bold action, not safe action. They're looking for, they want the rhetoric of disunion to cease and to end. They want to see us come together and accomplish things on behalf of the American people. I think that's why you see, especially in the Republican Party, the fringe candidates getting so much traction, is because they know that what's happening in the Republican-controlled House of Representatives and the Republican-controlled Senate, that there's disunity. They can't even get their own acts together, let alone govern. And I think it's time for us to move forward and really produce for the American people. And just on a short note, I shouldn't say not a small note in any way, shape, or form, and recognizing that the 14th anniversary of 9/11 will be this Friday. It's hard to believe that 14 years has passed since that tragic event that attacked my home city, my hometown of New York City. But it was an attack upon our nation, and we continue to mourn the loss, although it's been 14 years. I had personal losses myself, a first cousin, but also friends who suffered that day. And never a day goes by that I know I don't think about that event. I know my colleagues as well. I know the American people will never forget that vicious attack. But we move forward, and we continue to grow. We continue to think positively about the future, not only here of America, but of the world. And I think that's what September and the remembrance should be about, is helping to build a stronger and better America. And with that, I'll yield it back to the chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chairman, and we'll field any questions if there are any.
In terms of the CR, has there been any information shared in terms of how much, how long that would be with you guys, or has or what is the timeline looking like, ideally to accept that?
Most of us would think that 3 weeks out from not having the government, our government, funded and able to continue to operate, that we would have some idea of what the majority in the House and the Senate would propose to do to keep all those services going, since no one has told taxpayers to stop paying taxes. But the reality is that at this late stage, like you, in the media, the press, members of Congress are still in the dark about how we're going to keep the largest economy moving forward with a government that will do everything it takes. So it's crazy, but once again, we're at the brink where we're watching as we're on the verge of another Republican government shutdown. Maybe we'll avert it, but this is not the way to operate the largest economy in the world.
Let me just add to that. I know our whip, the minority whip, Mr. Hoyer, this morning said that we have 8 legislative days before the expiration of the budget for this fiscal year. You have to take away one of those days because of the Pope's visit. So it's really 7 days. Knowing the short period of time, knowing that the House leadership, including Mr. Becerra, myself, Leader Pelosi, Whip Hoyer, and Assistant Leader Clyburn, have written to Mr. Boehner and the House Republican leadership to sit down with us at a table and negotiate what steps are needed to ensure that a CR and a budget reflects the needs of the American people. And unfortunately, as of yet, they have not taken that up. We once again ask them, come to the table. Come and negotiate with us. We're here. We want to help. We want to help America. We'd like to get things accomplished and moving. But as of yet, no reply.
Any other questions? Walter? Walter, I think a lot of us are hoping that the Pope will continue to say what we've been hearing him say. He's inspired so many people. As a Catholic, am extremely gratified to have heard so many of the Pope's recent statements and proclamations. I hope the Pope takes an opportunity to talk about how immigrants, whether you're a refugee or someone who comes to this country to make your life better and make this country better, that the Pope will talk about how immigrants have enriched America and enriched all countries, that we have to treat people with respect. Certainly we see what's going on in Europe with the refugee crisis. We have experienced immigration here in this country for quite some time, and so I hope the Pope talks about immigration. He's been fantastic in many of his words about climate change. I hope he'll continue to stress that for a state like mine in California, where we're going through a devastating drought. It is crucial that we all take the mantle of leadership to say we're going to do what we need to do to avoid climate change that destroys what we cherish, and that is a way of life that we want to leave for our kids. And then finally, I think it's important for the Pope to inspire us and know that we can really get things done, and that America still is a beacon for the rest of the world. And so I hope the Pope talks about what how he feels about being in the United States of America. And I know our Vice Chairman probably wants to comment on that as well.
One thing I know is no one tells the Pope what to say. So it's really more of an expectation, I think, to what your question is what do I hope to hear from the Pope? What do we hope to hear from the Pope? One thing I will say is nothing the Pope has said so far strays from Catholic doctrine that from my understanding of Catholic doctrine, although not an expert, nor do I suspect Mr. Becerra is either, but that he has been so willing to speak about issues that heretofore have been on the down low. But I will suggest this, that I'm sure that the Pope will make everyone very uncomfortable, both sides of the aisle. I don't think there'll be some things that Democrats may not like to hear, and there'll certainly be some things I think that Republicans will not like to hear, and I think Mr. Becerra's gone through a myriad of them. But I think what's really more important is the message that he brings of hope, not only to America, but to the world. I think particularly here, given what's happening with the refugee crisis in Europe and our own crisis of refugees here in the United States, that certainly the issue of immigration reform, not only maybe for the United States, but for the entire world, or how we deal with people in crises right now, is something that I hope he focuses on. I think he will. I know he will. But I think we're all looking for the generosity of his time. We're looking forward to that. The fact that it will be the first time that a Pope will speak before the House of Representatives or before the Congress in a joint session is remarkable, to be a part of that history, to be in the same presence. I hearken back to John Paul's visit to New York back in 1979. I was a junior in high school, and I was at Madison Square Garden when he spoke, and I remember the thrill of just being there for that historic moment, but to be a member of the House of Representatives, to sit in the chamber and to be addressed by the Pope is just going to go down as one of the most remarkable things of my career in the House of Representatives.
I'll close on this note. There are a number of things that I've had an opportunity to do, the privilege to do as a member of Congress, and just someone who had a chance to get a college education. My parents didn't have a chance to get much education. My dad got to about the 6th grade. I will tell you that there, as much as I can point to things that I feel proud about, and that my parents will periodically tell me they're proud to know that I was able to do, the fact that the Pope is going to be in Congress, I don't know if there's a prouder moment for my parents than knowing that their son is going to be in the same chamber as the Pope, and it speaks volumes about the level of hope and faith that so many people around the world place in someone like the Pope. And so I truly do hope and pray that the Pope inspires us, because we've got lots of things to do. With that, we'll go ahead and close.
Mr. Chairman, just on a lighter note, I do know that the Pope's time here is very short. I think about an hour or so on campus. I do know that Chairman Becerra requested time for confession. He requested
He
an hour.
doesn't have enough time,
He
though.
requested an hour and a half, quite frankly, but the Pope he said maybe a minute or two. So.
That my parents may not be so proud about that part of it. Thank you all very much.